3:30. I think we'll get started. Just before I let the Downings start, I do have a couple of very quick announcements. Remember, the hospitality room will be open tomorrow from 9 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon. And this room will be divided and will be in the front two sections, I believe, S2 and 4. And we would like to remind you that the committee is hoping you will turn in your evaluation cards before you leave the convention. If you could fill them out and turn them in tomorrow in the hospitality room, that would be great. If not, please turn them in to us during the general session on Wednesday morning. We thank you. I think all of you were here this morning to hear the official introduction of Jerry and Jean Downing. So right now, I would like, with no further ado, to reintroduce Dr. and Mrs. Jerry Downing.
Thank you, Erna. Hi again. You don't have any stress, do you? I got this last night from Bobby Davis, I believe, made these statements out. And Jerry and I were talking about this after lunch today. And we think you partners have a pretty rough road to hoe. We hope we can be of some help. If you would take out your handouts, the life stress or the social readjustment scale, the this handout, and this one. Did you feel, well, the one is how do you deal with stress factors? Test aims to analyze life strains. And the other one is the wellness factor, all the factors it takes to live a wellness lifestyle. And then the social readjustment scale. We'll be looking at those through this session. And the other handouts, the nutrition, exercise, environment, stress management, those are educational tools. Those are learning tools for you. And hopefully, through these sessions, you can identify some areas that you might want to think about a change in your lifestyle, in your health behaviors, in your stress level, and some things through today and tomorrow will be helping you with some coping mechanisms to help you on these. The how to deal with stress factors, do you have any questions on those? They're stressing environmental awareness, all the things that are on this handout, the wellness lifestyle handout. This little quiz is stressing, this little questionnaire. Love and support, rapport, as far as environment, fitness, nutrition, spiritual awareness, so forth. You might want to check that, complete that too if you haven't already. Okay, first slide, please, honey. That's Honey back there at the slide. He says when I call him in the shopping center, there are lots of guys that have the same name. No, you're on the morning session. He slept through part of it. He's heard it enough. You've got to get clear through yours, too. This morning, while I'm waiting for him, this morning I mentioned to you that if you lived a wellness lifestyle, it would be better than any medical intervention. And that would save more lives in the 40 to 64 age range than any medical intervention, drugs, surgery, or medicine. This is what I'm going to be talking about, a holistic wellness lifestyle. 82 years ago, Sir William Osler, who was the father of American medicine, said that if you put faith and drugs on a balance scale, faith would outweigh the drugs. And this is kind of a placebo effect, like the copper bracelet for arthritis, when mommy kisses the child's laceration or whatever. And it really does work. A placebo is 3 times as effective as any drug that you could take. And I tell you this because, as I said this morning, a holistic lifestyle doesn't necessarily mean without drugs, but if you can, it's better without drugs. And there are lots of ways to deal with your stress illnesses without resorting to drugs, even aspirin. Next slide. This is the Holistic Health Triune, which we'll be talking about, body, mind, and spirit, and the things it encompasses. Okay. Next slide. You'll see on the right-hand column the causes of death in early 1900s. Remember what I said this morning? It wasn't necessarily anything that the medical profession did to prolong life, but it was sanitation. That as well as vaccination on the illnesses and deaths on the right-hand side. The left-hand side, the causes of death listed in order as of last year, and it's still true this year, are all largely stress-related. There is some factor, of course, according to who you chose for parents, your genes and heredity. But these illnesses can be prevented or minimized through a holistic lifestyle. Next slide. Finally, we get to a definition of stress. We've been talking about it. We struggled over this. There are so many definitions: wear and tear of your body, lack of control over your body and environment. We chose this one. It's a bit complicated, but one reason we chose this one is it encompasses not only the physical and mental factors, but the chemical that I was talking about this morning, the chemical stressors. And it's your body's reaction to these invaders that either cause you anger, fear, jealousy, hatred, joy, excitement, that energize you or motivate you. Next slide, honey. Stress is not all bad. There is some good. This is a picture of negative stress, where you feel like the world is just coming down on you and it's just doing all sorts of things to your body. The good stress can motivate you, give you direction. Like, I'll bet you had good stress planning your trip here, getting ready to come, seeing friends, taking part in all the activities. That's good stress. Sure, you had to see that the dog went to the kennels and the mail was stopped and the plants were watered and the bags were packed and reservations made. But the good stress motivated you to do those things, and you handled that stress probably very well. The bad stress is what doesn't give us the direction, there's no control, and that's what makes you sick. And that's life in the fast lane. Okay, now we get to our social readjustment scale. 2 psychiatrists from University of Washington, Holmes and Rao, studied this change in your lifestyle quite extensively and the effect it has on your health. They assigned points to the amount, the duration, and the severity of change in a person's life in a given period of time. And this scale is for the past 12 months. Now, a cumulative score of 300 has been proven to correlate with an 80% chance of one having a stress-related illness within the next 2 years. That top one, death of a spouse, it has really been proven that after men lose their wife, and this is mainly the men losing a wife, a good portion of them either get a catastrophic illness or die within 18 months. A score of less than 150, you have only a 37% chance of becoming ill. A score of between 150 and 300, you have a 51% chance of becoming ill, of getting a stress-related illness. A score of greater than 300, watch out. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody's going to get sick that has a score of over 150 or over 300 or at 300. There's 80% chance, right? So what do you suppose about the 20% that don't get sick? You know what? They've made the choice to live a healthier life, to do something about their health behaviors, their stress in particular. Okay, this study shows that too much change in too short a time is altering the immune system in your body. And, of course, cancer is the one illness that they're relating now mostly with the immune system. We need change. We can't avoid change, but we do need a balance. And the amount of change in your life, hopefully, you can have some control over. Okay, what can we do about this stress mess? Well, first is awareness, and this is on your handout too. One of the basic principles of holistic health is self-responsibility, and that means that you have to become aware of your own body, of what your bad lifestyle is telling you, and what you can do about it. Before you can carry out any program of what to do, you have to be aware of why you think you're becoming stressed, why the stress is bothering you the most, and at what times, what your thinking is telling you, and what lifestyle behaviors you can change. You have to develop a curiosity about your inner being, about yourself, and this is somewhat of spiritual awareness too. When you take time out to do some meditation every day, which is really being proven now that it really does enhance your health. If you could take out 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, once or twice a day, and do some reflection on your lifestyle, your spiritual being, your beliefs, it really will help you. So you want to develop a curiosity about your inner being. And since stress is a condition created within you by these external or internal things, it is up to you, isn't it? You might ask yourself then, what is it about myself that makes me react this way? Listen to your body for signs and signals of the stress, and then ask yourself, is it worth dying for? Okay, coping next. It's how you handle the stress. It isn't the stress per se, it's how you handle or do not handle it. And there are low points for coping. Next slide, please. Let's see if we got the right one. Try another one. Okay, low points for coping. And we all have low points, and this is part of being aware. When does the stress get you most? Is it the end of the month when all the bills are due? Is it that time of the month for we ladies? Is it when your husband has too many dances to call during the week, and you've got your mother visiting, and the kids are out of school, and on and on? You can name your own stressors there. It's also several stressors at one time, and that's somewhat what I said in the beginning. Right now it's income tax. You had the CALLERLAB to come to. We had a snowstorm in Colorado. Maybe you did too where you live. So on. And then your state of health. Depends on how you cope. The more better health you're in, the better you're going to be able to cope with your stress. Since stress is a daily event then, we need several coping mechanisms. Now one time, relaxation, as Jerry taught you this morning, isn't going to work. You might need to go out and run around the block. You might need to go have a cup of tea with your neighbor and have some friendly chit-chat. Whatever it is that you find is a good coping mechanism for you. So you will need several. You need to control this stress for your coping mechanism too, rather than have it control you. Next slide. Okay, here's some ideas on coping with stress, I think. Yeah. First is to clarify your values. Is it really worth dying for when you have all these stressors coming down on you and you know it's going to make you sick? Even if it's a cold this time. It's the micro trauma, the little by little, the daily events of stress that are going to get to you. That life change social readjustment scale that Holmes and Rao developed found that we could withstand the big changes more than we can withstand the daily, everyday changes. You know, when you have this stressor hit you and all these hormones go into action, and there's a lot of physiological business that I am certainly not going into on what stress does inside your body to get you ready. Well, you've all heard about the man that jumped in the Potomac and saved all those people after that plane accident. He could withstand that tremendous stress of that icy water and of the excitement of trying to save the people and so forth. He could stand that for a while. Of course, he eventually did die, but he saved a lot of people in the meantime. So your body can withstand the great, big stress, but it's the little things, the micro trauma of everyday things that are badgering us. Okay, clarify your values. Make 3 lists. If you only had 6 months to live, make a list of things you absolutely had to do, you really, really wanted to do. And then the things you want to do, but didn't really have to do. And then the last list, all the demands people are putting on you, things you think you ought to do or should do. And then throw away the last list and just do the things that you want to do and that you really feel like you would leave a contribution for. Okay, then improve your self-talks. We all do talk to ourselves, and the mind is a great purveyor of information. And you need to discipline yourself to get away from the negative thoughts. You know, we say, I can't quit smoking. I don't have time for exercise. Heavens, I don't have time for meditation. It's because of what you're telling yourself. You don't have this time. If you re-educated your thoughts, you would have the time and the motivation and the desire to do some of these things. Learn how to relax. Jerry taught you that this morning. Exercise regularly. We're going to go into that tomorrow a little bit more. Get the leisure you need. That's very important too, and we'll go into that tomorrow. And dietary goals tomorrow. Avoid the chemical haze, and we talked some about that this morning. So those are some things that you can adopt for coping with your stress. The people that had this remarkable longevity that I talked about this morning, the Mormons and the Seventh-day Adventists, you can also include in there nuns and symphony conductors, and, surprisingly, women who were listed in Who's Who in America. And this study says that it's because the way they have lived, that they feel they have lived very productively, they have accomplished things, they have achieved things, and they feel that that's one reason that they have lived so long. So some of the personal factors that they had were probably being in control of their lives, for one thing. And that's one thing we can all work on. Another thing, you need a network of family and friends, and then you need a personality factors such as flexibility and hopefulness. There was a study at Johns Hopkins with over 1,000 medical students, just to show you how important social interaction is. One of the strongest prognosticators of cancer, suicide, and mental health illness was the lack of closeness to friends and a negative attitude toward family. Another study in California confirmed the importance of social support that said even after adjusting lifestyle changes like quitting smoking or starting an exercise program, The people with few close contacts socially were dying 2 to 3 times faster than those who regularly turned to friends. This has been shown, too, with Vietnam prisoners of war. We saw it on some program like 60 Minutes, where they tapped messages in code to each other in their cells. And God bless you, God bless America. They tapped Bible verses, they tapped poetry, anything they could think of. And this communication kept the Vietnam prisoners of war was a factor in keeping them alive. Talking about control over one's environment, there was a group of researchers that put some monkeys in a room and had a lot of loud noise, high-pitched noise come in, piped in. And then there was another group of monkeys in another room that they had a pull that they could turn the noise off. And those monkeys lived longer and were healthier. They had control over their environment. Okay, talking about control, Carl Symington, in his cancer clinic that Jerry mentioned this morning, has some neat ideas on assisting cancer victims. And one of them, before they even get down there to the clinic, and they have to be critically ill before he will even accept them. Definite cancer, definite malignancy. And he has them list about 6 reasons why they want to die. He feels that they have it in their ideas, their head, their lifestyle, some reason they want to die. Their family situation, work situation, they're trying to escape. Then he has them draw a picture of what is happening to their cancer cells. And the ones who draw the big white knights devouring their cancer cells, even Ms. Pac-Man coming along and chomping them up, a lot of those recover or at least live a better quality and a little longer life than those who drew a less drastic picture of what happens to their cancer cells. At Carl Symington's clinic, he had this lady that was diagnosed terminally ill, and she was only supposed to live a couple of months. And sweet little old lady, about a year later, said to the doctor, "You know, I realized that the reason I was dying of cancer was I hated my family with a vengeance." And she said, "When I realized that, I just decided," and I quote, "I'm not going to let those bastards kill me." And she lived. Jerry's next.
Well, I hope in true partner style I can introduce myself as Jean Downing's husband. You know, when I was reading Erna's letter and Bobby Davis' essay on stress I'm really convinced that you ladies are the most likely candidates for harmful effects of stress by far than with your husbands. If I really wanted to have a going business and... Well, of course, maybe I just saw one side of it. You know, I didn't see any letters from your husbands, but those 2 letters impressed me a great deal. If I really wanted to set up a thriving business in therapy, I'd try to find out where all the callers' wives lived and give a try at opening an office nearby, because I really think there might be some candidates for therapy. It's the sorts of things that you are involved in and face stressors is really amazing to me. As Gene mentioned, the caller is subject, well, at least this is the way I translated it, the caller is subject to intense periods of high stress while he's performing. But these times are not of that long duration. They're up, and then they can let the stress down if they're operating in a healthy way. But you get to live with the stress over an extended period because it's not just the performance but the total situation that you're living with. I guess I see that level of constant stress being wearing. It's a little like the Chinese water torture, where you have drop by drop on your head all the time. It's not any big threatening sort of thing, except, all of us run into some more threatening issues, but it seems the sorts of things that you're facing, and thinking about Bobby's letter again, are continual eroding. It's an abrasive sort of thing that must be wearing. That's what I read from where you are. We know that steady erosion by stress is often more damaging than the surges of performance anxiety. In other words, that steady erosion is what tends to cause some damaging health problems. For these reasons, I'd like to work with you in two areas this afternoon. I'd like to work with you on some self-acceptance and that perhaps of assertiveness. They both get at some of the irrational stresses that can erode. So I'd like to talk a little bit about those. I believe low self-esteem results in stressful emotions such as depression, jealousy, anger, embarrassment. And when I say depression, I'm thinking about self-condemnation, being critical of self. Now, I'm going to stop right here, and if you don't want me to talk about those, I'll talk about something else. Do you think any of those are likely to be in your mind? Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't expecting you to say, okay, let's go on and talk about something else. So I really would expect that these are some of the areas that might really be difficult with you. What sorts of things do you base your self-acceptance upon? We're going to have some time to talk a little bit later. I'll make some speculations with you now, but I'm really interested in what sorts of things that you would say make you acceptable to yourself. Because when people don't feel very acceptable, very self-accepting, and have fairly high esteem, then you get into the negative things. As a matter of fact, when I'm working with people who are suicidal, I look almost immediately to how they feel about themselves. I give them a little test. I'm not going to give it to you. I just hold up my hands and say, name me 5 good things about yourself. I just do it consistently. You'd be surprised how many people stumble around, are unable to come up with 1 or 2, and usually the statements they make about themselves, they degrade. They say, well, I'm honest, or I'm not too bad a person, and it's sort of backing off with the statements that are supposed to be very positive in terms of how they think about themselves, and they have a very difficult time with this. These are the ones that are usually depressed and down and sometimes have suicidal thoughts. So the element of how we feel about ourselves is terribly important for survival. I think along with self-esteem is that element of purpose. So when you say, what sort of things cause you to accept yourself, I would put right beside it, what's your purpose? If you don't have any purpose and your self-esteem is low, you probably are suffering from depression at times already. Now, with you as partners, and I'm sure in your life, your whole world does not revolve around what your husband is doing, does it? I'm not sure. I'm just okay. Then I'll back up. Now some of you here, there were just a few of you, very, very few that said okay, my whole life seems to revolve around the caller. Very, very few. Probably counted on 15 hands anyway. And so what I'm saying is, if that's the case, if that's true, if you really feel that your life revolves around your husband and what he's doing, now I think it's very positive. You know, Gene and I have managed to get along nicely for 34 years, and it's fun. And I think my life sort of revolves around her. But she is also an individual who is able to do the things that she has a separate purpose. I could care less about nursing. Great Caesar's ghost, that's awfully bloody. People are all the time coming in, and you have to sew them up and all that sort of thing. That's her bailiwick, but she has some purpose there. Now, she thinks psychology is kind of dumb. I have to admit to that. She says, boy, what do you mean? You sit there all day and listen to all those things that people, all that stuff they tell you? And I say, well, yeah, but I don't hear a lot of that. I'm looking for what's wrong so I can assist. But what I'm saying is that even though our lives are tightly interlaced, we each have a purpose that's kind of separate. And I hope that we also have some self-value, some self-esteem that is apart from one another. Does that make any sense? Where you can have a good solid team and yet not have you have some give and take, but not be involved in having things rotate totally around one or the other partners, and you're after a balance all the time. That's why I ask you, what causes you to accept yourself? Let me say this. Let's try a little line of items. If you say, well, I can accept myself because, let's say some of you may be students. I can accept myself because I'm a student, a good student, and I get good grades, and I say, boy, that's neat. That's great. That means if you get an A+, then, you are great. You can really accept yourself a lot. If you get a B+, well, you can accept yourself a little bit less. Let's say you get a nice 63, and that's an F-. Does that mean you have to disregard yourself and call yourself worth less? Now, let's look at another area. Let's say on the job. Let's use that as a criteria for accepting yourself. If the boss likes you, you're doing a good job, you get raises, all these neat things, then you can accept yourself and feel good about yourself. Okay? That's nice. What if someday the boss is critical of you? He may just be using good criticism to help you, but if he's critical of you, then does that mean that you feel like you are of less value? You get to make a choice there, don't you? And if you're fired, obviously you're worth nothing. Well, I mean, if we're going to use that for the criteria, that's the way it works, isn't it? That's the way the equation comes out. Well, I don't like that one too well. I've been fired in my time. Let's use the relationship with the most important person in your life. That's probably your husband or wife. It is with me. Let's say you can accept yourself because that person accepts you, loves you, wants to be with you. Then that's really neat. That's a pretty good reason. But let's try that out. I'll do it on myself. You don't have to participate in this. I accept myself because Jean really, really cares for me, I believe. So if I go home one day from the office and she has baked my favorite pie and said, boy, I'm really glad to be married to you. It's really great to be in this relationship. then I can say, man, I am really fulfilled. I am acceptable because this lady in my life really cares for me. Now let's say I go home on the next day and Jean still loves me. She's not suing for divorce, but she has the flu. She has the flu, and she doesn't meet me at the door. She may be in bed. Although she wouldn't be that. But she doesn't meet me at the door. She doesn't give me that affection that I really love and crave. So what happens with my self-esteem? It's down here, isn't it? Okay, if I count on any of those items, job, school, people that I want to love me, as the basis for my self-acceptance, I'm on an emotional roller coaster. I'm up and down all the time. When they're accepting me, I feel fine. When they're not, I feel like I'm a lousy person. Well, what do we have left? What are we going to use to decide whether or not we can accept ourselves? Now, this is going to sound a little strange, but I suggest to you that the only basis to get away from skating on thin ice in terms of self-acceptance, the only basis that I know of to accept myself is the fact that I'm here. Now, I like to go one step farther. You can go where you want to. I say I can accept myself because the good Lord put me here. Now, with that sort of a foundation, then I can start to function. Because then I'm not subject to people around me or the job or my environment for self-acceptance. I've even done this with people who are really down and depressed. I've asked them to go home and write it on their bathroom mirror in lipstick. I accept myself because I'm here, period. So they can get into their mind and start drilling out that old garbage that says, I am of no value unless someone cares for me, loves me, or I have a good job. Now, that's a deep, long-lasting, well-rooted thought, especially in women's head. I'm digressing a minute. How many women I've seen come into me and say, I turned 30 and I don't have a man. I say, well, that is very sad. What if you turned 30 and you did have a man? Would you be any better? Would you be a more valuable person? And as far as I'm concerned, the answer is no. If you're going to put that sort of qualification on your self-esteem, you're likely to have trouble. I am not taking away from the value of relationship. I think that's extremely valuable. I believe it. I think that we were really tuned in to relating with people, and that's where the joyous, happy life can be. Sometimes there are a few problems with it, but that's the if you degrade yourself though and tie your value to how the other person views you, you're going to be on that emotional roller coaster, and lots of people are. I've seen just in the last few years, I've seen several women who are fairly mature in life, in their 50s and 60s, who have been divorced or have lost their man through death, who believe that their value is like zero. And it's because all through their life they have learned and carried the idea that they have no value aside from the relationship. And I don't believe that's very usable. So I'm suggesting to you that one way that in this area, if you're having difficulty with some of the depression, feeling badly, or if you're having difficulty in seeing value in yourself, maybe you're using the wrong criteria. Maybe you might want to start to switch the thinking. You know, if you're here this morning and I'm talking about that formula, it's the evaluation, it's the belief system that tells you that you have no worth apart from another person. Most of you ladies, unless you married some real young men, are going to get to spend about 10 years without them. Something's wrong with we males. We just don't seem to hack it down the line into the sunset as well as you ladies do. So if you have your value and self-worth tied with the person that you're linked up with now, you're going to have about 10 years of total worthlessness on the end of your life. That's about the way the statistics are going, and that doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. Okay. I said I'm trying to get at this issue of depression. If you run into this, that's a negative emotion that I think you might encounter if you're tying your self-worth to your husband, to your partner, and that doesn't need to take away a bit from having a beautiful, great relationship. But self-worth is a separate thing. I think too, and I'm once again from the letters, I'm really responding to those letters you ladies wrote. I think about the possibility of jealousy. I don't know, maybe that doesn't exist. Here, all the callers I've seen are absolutely handsome, virile, outgoing type men. Now, what kind of men do women like? Handsome, virile, outgoing men. Now, you get what a terrific amount of exposure these gents get to ladies as well as gentlemen. But I'm wondering whether or not there is ever a little sneaky emotion of jealousy. I don't know. I'm just encountering it. Oh, well, there's a nod or two here and there. Okay. Now, how do you combat the feelings of jealousy? I want to be practical with you again. Jealousy is a fear reaction, isn't it? You fear the loss of a love object. That's why we're jealous. If I really am fearful, I'm going to lose the person that I care for, then I can be jealous. And that takes the frame of anger, because if you're really protecting your self-concept, why then you may become angry. That's to protect that self a bit too. So how do you handle jealousy? Well, you get at the little self-statement again, like we talked about this morning, to start changing in your mind. Now, do you exercise total control over whether you're going to keep your man or lose your man? You exercise total control. I don't believe so. After all, we're all human beings, and so individuals get to make choices, don't they? That's right. So that means that here's another area that you don't have control. Now, so it's possible, it's not, let me put it the other way, it's not impossible that you might lose that person you love very much. That happens to be the truth. Most people try to go around that and say, oh, it'll never happen. Well, it may never happen, but facing the issue and dealing with the irrational, the untruth in your mind that says, if I lost him, that would mean I was rejected and I am of less value. That's a lie. But that's what goes on in. Now, you might be rejected, but there's a big difference between being rejected and feeling rejected. I've been rejected, and it doesn't feel good. I don't like that, but I'm the one that decides in my head whether I'm going to dwell on that and to feel down and feel like I'm a total loss. But if you recognize, now back to the old formula I talked about this morning, if you feel jealous, look what you're telling yourself, which is probably, oh, I might lose him, and that would be terrible because that's a statement of my value. Say to yourself, that is garbage. I learned that somewhere, but I'm not going to hang on to it. I am as valuable without that person as I am with. The value doesn't change. And if you don't buy another thing from what we've talked about, I would hope you could buy that one, because we're really at the essence of self-acceptance. And that's really important. I do not... I was talking with someone last night, and we were wondering if there were statistics that gave an idea of whether the divorce rate was higher with caller couples or not. I have not seen that. I don't know. I really don't think it's any worse. Well, I know what the top divorce rates are in terms of professions, and I smile because psychiatrists, psychologists, police officers, and also that happens to be also the same list. The list comes very closely to those involved in drug addiction and suicide. So I don't think, I really don't think that, and I haven't seen any studies on caller couples specifically, but I don't think that the divorce rate is any higher. But all I'm saying is, if you are viewing yourself as a valuable person, as acceptable by yourself or not, or as a pair, then you increase the likelihood of staying together. Now, doesn't that sound strange? I'm saying that if you can accept yourself on the basis of your own value, then rather than a shared, then you're more likely to stay together. Why is this? Because you're likely to have more confidence, feel better about yourself, and you immediately become more attractive. Who's the most attractive? A person that is self-confident and a person that has purpose. So if you are confident and self-accepting, you're a much more likely person to be attractive. Does that make sense? It does. So, okay. Let me see. Okay. What about anger? Oh my goodness, we're going to get the whole gamut of these negative emotions. Remember, I said this morning, a negative emotion is one that hurts you or blocks your goal direction. Okay, so anger. Now there are some anger cults. They're in psychology. There are people who say, well, that anger is really good for you, and they tend to be the ones that, they put couples in a padded room with foam bats and let them whack each other for a while. And now, I tend not to believe that's quite as valuable. I think it helps people be angry more effectively, perhaps, but I don't think anybody wins particularly. Anger. How can you take care of anger? I'm wondering what sort of things you're angry about. Oh, yeah. What? I guess I'd be glad to hear someone volunteer. What? Yes. Aha. You can't show it. Well, you can. You may show it. You may choose to show it. You choose not to. Is that correct? Oh. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But she's saying that she cannot show it. She cannot show anger because she's been told that everything she says or does reflects on her husband, or the reputation as a caller, I expect, and consequently you cannot show it. Now, what I want to say is, though, you see, when people start to think in this way, and you're saying I cannot, that means I think you're choosing not to. Now the repercussions might be lousy, and I can tell you don't like it. That's right. But wait, just a moment. We have a gentleman. Okay.
I'm a partner. My wife's the square dance caller. My name's Fred Layton from Fairfield, California. I don't really feel a little stressed right now what you're talking just to the women instead of some of us men, or rather I'm a little angry. Okay. But I think the men has a part in this also.
Okay, good enough. Now, and I love that illustration because when you say I feel a little angry, now this helps me out. Because that's what we're talking about. That's the name of the game. But I'm still, okay, I'm sorry you left the mic, sir. I'm just wondering. You hear what the lady said, that she felt that she could not express anger. Is that the same situation you're in?
Well, I imagine it is, yes.
Oh, okay. Good enough. Why? I'm going to get right back to you. Why do you feel angry?
Well, I thought I was sort of left out.
Okay, right here.
Since most of the words I've heard you say is directed to the women, there is a few of us men in here whose wives are callers, and that's why I'm sitting here, because I thought a lot of this would be directed to us.
Okay.
That's the reason I'm here.
Well, yes, but I'm talking about your anger. Do you get angry about or something about the calling situation?
Oh no.
Oh, no.
I love it.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. That helps then. I'll just deal with in a minute with what the anger right here. Okay. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
Well, wait. I want to get to this lady here. That's okay. I'm done there, sir. But this is great, because of all the things we get into, that people really start to get uptight and tell me about its anger. So I love I love to deal with that. Okay, let me talk to this lady a minute. Oh, you can't. Oh, okay. Well, I'll repeat what she's talking about. She says that her anger is that she, let me know if I'm not translating correctly, that you feel some anger, but you're not supposed to show it. And you are told you're not supposed to show it. When you say it that way, I assume you go ahead and do show it. Yeah, okay. Now, okay, let's just talk about what causes anger, because I don't like the feeling of anger. It doesn't help me, and I have it. And so, how can you change it? First of all, I'm going to assume that you can't change the situation. You've chosen to be in the situation, and you're going to play your hand out. Well, I know, but no, the lady says that's not necessarily true. But I want to deal with just the anger, because if you want to, even if you're deciding what you're going to do one way or the other, anger doesn't feel very good to me. So I'm just going to suggest to you a way to get at it. A primary thing that causes anger is what we tell ourselves in our head. Now, this gentleman back here, and you have some real things in common, although we're talking about different ones. What you're saying to yourself is, life should be different than it is. People should act in the way I think they should. Now, if you have that line going through your head, it's very likely that you're going to have some anger. Okay, let's go back here, all right? Lady is saying it's a question of her being angry because other people will not allow her to act the way she wants to be. Okay, but if those other people don't allow you, then you're still saying they should allow me. Isn't that right? In which case, while you're saying people should act in the way I think they should. Now, that statement, that self-statement, is so well dug in for most of us that we really have a tough time. Let me give you an example. You see, that's why people really fight against the idea when I say to them, no one can make you angry, only you can make yourself angry. Let me give you my example. Traffic is a problem with me. I do not like traffic. Now, I do not like being angry either. Now, one thing that used to make me angry is when I was at a signal light and the light would turn green and that clod right behind me would hit the horn 1/8 of a second after the light changed. Now, He didn't make me angry. I became angry. But you see what I'm talking about? You have to start changing the thinking. Otherwise, you keep on getting angry. I have to learn that that guy, he and other people act in the way they see fit. I may not like it, but that doesn't make them bad, wicked, and awful, and they should be punished. Because if I think that they should act in the way I think they should, then I am doomed to anger. I have no control. That means I spend the rest of my days being angry or happy because of the way people act toward me. I don't want to give that power to someone else. This is a tough one. Boy, I knew when we got into anger, it's a tough one. It is. Now, I'm thinking about the issue with you. Now, you're saying, I feel angry because they won't let me act the way I want to, myself, be myself even. But that's a statement. That's a statement of saying people should let me act in a certain way, isn't it? That's a hard one. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I do too.
Okay, thanks, Ernest. Why don't you go ahead, ma'am?
Irene Chapman. I'm from California. I know exactly where she's sitting, and maybe we need to clue you a little bit in. And first thing I'd like to quote is what was put out in our flyers. A caller's wife has many obligations. The first of these is to make an effort to avoid all unpleasant discussions en route to dancers. That's what she's talking about. A caller upset by personal problems cannot give his full attention to a program. This has been pushed at the partners over all the many years that I've been in the activity. It gets worse and not better. I've been in the activity since 1955. And I feel sorry for the young partners that are coming up with and trying to cope with this, because they are being... she has a right to say that she's angry because she's not being allowed to be a person. Mm-hmm. This is continually pushed.
And if you think I'm going to get in the middle of what sort of rules you have, you are mistaken. All I am going to try to work with you on is, if you are angry, how you may change it. Okay, I'm not going to say, should this rule exist or not. That's not my job. My job is to assist you, if you're going to decide to be angry, how to lower that anger. Now, so go right ahead.
Kathy Smith from Sacramento. Mm-hmm. Also, what I get the most angry about is we walk into the hall carrying equipment behind our husbands or our wives, whatever the case may be, Fred. We walk in, we're expected to be 2 steps behind our caller. We are the quiet ones sitting in the back of the hall. We're expected to know all of the movements better than the dancers on the floor. We're expected to not have an opinion about anything except when we're asked to have an opinion. These are generally by the dancers. The role that they expect us to fit into, we have no personality. All of our personality is up on the stage.
That's really an interesting one, because that gets back to your self-worth, the issue. If you say all your personality is up on the stage, boy, that makes it difficult for you to have purpose yourself. Now, this is really interesting. Well, I can see that we just struck a nerve. I guess if I really wanted to keep things cool, I would never have said, "What about anger?" But we did. That's great. But I want to get back sometime before we finish to how you may manage your anger more effectively. Yes, ma'am.
I've been a caller's partner as long as the lady ahead of me. I think that the problem here is not the dancer's problem and what they think of you. The problem here is what you think of yourselves. I go to the dance, I help him carry in the equipment, maybe 2 steps behind, but that doesn't make me a lesser person than he. That only means that I don't get on the stage and do the calling. And I don't do that by choice. I don't know about the rest of you. But if some of you want to be the callers, take up calling. Be his helper. Be his partner. Call some of the tips for him. Cue the rounds. If your dancers are telling you that you're a lesser person because you don't have a mind of your own, that's not your dancer's problem. That's your problem. My dancers don't tell me I can't have ideas, because nobody's going to tell me that, not my partner, and certainly not the dancers.
I have no argument with you because you don't sound very angry. Yes, ma'am.
We can manage our stress. I'm sure we all do a fantastic job every time we go to a dance. We do. We put up with these things. We adjust daily to these things. I think what we're feeling is that we shouldn't have to adjust so much. That's the problem of, my husband calls for one club. The club does not really associate with me much. They're off in their own little world, and I sit. Now, if I bring something, if I bring a book, if I bring knitting, now I'm antisocial. I don't know why they didn't talk to me to begin with, but now that I have something to do that makes me happy, I'm antisocial. They don't ask me to dance, but if one person is needed to fill in a square, now I must dance. And it is my responsibility. There's just... I smile through it all. I try never to let the dancers know how upset I am. I can't go home and tell my husband about it. He don't want to hear about it. Yeah. We're not supposed to do these things. That's where the stress comes from.
I'm very interested. What you're saying, though, you see, you say we handle our stress all right, but right now, as you speak,
I'm stressful.
You're talking stress to me.
Yeah.
You're also you're speaking of things that you haven't resolved. Those things that aren't resolved, such as the resentment that starts to come along, then you still have stress from them. All you've done is buried it.
The next thing I tried staying home. If the clubs don't make me happy, why do I go? Mm-hmm. Now my husband's not happy. Now he wants to quit calling for them. Mm-hmm. I would just as soon be home. Mm-hmm. That's how I would handle it. I would stay home, and I would do the things that interest me. But my husband does not want me to, so that adds to it. Well,
let me try to get at some help for you. Oh, well, okay. It sounds like we really opened the gate. Go ahead.
Good.
I'm really not addressing exactly addressing the anger and that sort of thing. But one thing I just want to mention is that sometimes what we perceive as what the dancers feel about us is not really what it is. Sometimes we have to re-examine what the dancers really think of us. Maybe we have to look at ourselves, and maybe we're being too critical of the dancers. I don't think the dancers really feel the way about the caller's wife as some of the things that I've heard today. Maybe it's just in our situation, I don't know. But I think that we're being too critical of the dancers.
Well, what you've done is point up to me the very thinly veiled hostility and anger that lies down there. I'm thinking, how can I assist? How can you start to change the feelings that you have that are destructive to you, destructive to the relationship. It's probably destructive to the dance setting. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm Pat Duval from Hollis, New Hampshire. I've been dancing since 62. My husband's been calling since 65. I'm sorry, young lady, I have to rebuttal what you just said. My husband calls for several clubs regularly. He's their club caller, their workshop caller, so on and so forth. We have one club that is pretty much the way that young lady said hers was. But I don't bring my knitting. I don't bring a book. I don't sit in the corner. I turn around and I go sit right in the middle of their little Ku Klux Klan and I talk with them. That's what we're there for. We're the bullshit artists for the callers. We're there because our husbands are there. We're behind them 100%. If you're not, don't go to a dance because you're going to hurt them more than you're going to help them. And you have to be critical of him, and he has to listen to you what your needs are. My husband will say to me, honey, what did you think of that tonight? I'll say, well, I had a little problem with this club. They really didn't make me feel good. He says, what? He said, I didn't notice. He said, you were up there with them. Secondly, if I don't want to dance, I will not dance. For the simple reason, for 19 years, I played the boy's part. And I said to my husband, I said, you know what? I go dancing. I can't dance the girl's part anymore. What's a girl do? Now, I turn around and I say to my clubs, you can't get another man up there, which I know there's one out in the kitchen. I will not get up and be a boy. If they need a woman and I want to dance, I'll get up and dance. You're not forced to do anything. You do what you want, and you bring up these dancers the way you are. If you're happy-go-lucky, and if you really enjoy being with them, that goes over to them. And boy, do they accept you wholeheartedly. My dancers take me like they take my husband. Some of them said to me, hey, if anything happened to Ray, what would you do? I said, I don't think I'd stay in calling and dancing. They said, you're crazy. You're part of us. You're the core of square dancing. Stay in there, baby. Let's go to it. And, baby, if you want to be a good caller's wife, talk to your husband. He will listen to you. He loves you, and you're a part of that team. And if they say they're going to pay the husband, boy, they're paying that wife for sitting there and taking everything, and you just smile and say, if you need my advice, I'll help you. But don't put your nose where it doesn't belong. Thank you.
Let me take just one more, because then, actually I feel just like I'm in a therapy situation. I usually have this go on and get $60 an hour per person. That's great. Yeah. So just this one lady, and then let me get back to seeing what we can do. One thing, you're really singing the song to me that says, I've got some bitterness, and you're out there telling me about some of the hostility. So let's see what we can do about it. Okay.
I'm Ruth Perry from Houston, Texas. She's a hard act to follow, but I'm going to have a few suggestions. I've been in and out of square dancing for about 20 years, and I'm hearing something that I have heard 20 years ago as well as presently. I would venture to say that most of us were square dancers before we were square dance wives, and by that I mean we were square dancing before our husbands took up square dance calling. It's my theory that if our square dance husband, in their course of teaching a class, would just take 5 minutes sometime during that 40 weeks of instruction and say that I am here for your pleasure, my wife allows me to be here, and she is here as my partner. If each one of the men in that class would ask that wife to dance sometime during the evening, that woman would dance every tip in an evening and have a great time. She wouldn't have to have knitting or a book or sitting on the side. I think that would be an easy solution. Thank you.
Thank you. I just found, Erna just tells me that the buses are going to take off soon, but let me say this. I'm not going to leave the anger issue. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning I'm going to address that. What you've done is given me a lot of smoke and fire to work on, and so I appreciate it. Do you have any announcement?
Not a thing.
Okay.